old school, man. We're back.
Going old school. We are bringing you the road show. Today is June 29th, 2021. Welcome aboard. A blast from the past. This is a Crushing Iron podcast, and today we are episode 490.
Yeah, we are, man. That's a lot of numbers.
It feels weird to Mike and I are both on the road this week, so we are whipping out our old school headsets. It feels weird because this is and kind of nostalgic and kind of I like doing these blasts in the past because this is how we got started. This is kind of like remembering our going back to our roots. This is the podcast that you told me to buy, or the headset that you sent me a link to 5 years ago. Like, hey man, we're gonna do this thing called a podcast, and what I need you to do is go on to Amazon, purchase this headset, and then just plug it in, and then I'll walk you through the rest. And here we are.
And here we are, yeah.
And here we are. I still have the same handy dandy headset with the plug-in, but that's it. I hope you had an awesome weekend. Man, we had a busy week last week, and we know there was a lot of busy things going on. You had a couple big races. You had Williamsburg 70.3, which is a Rev 3 race. They had pros there. We had Steelhead 70.3, which is another big race. They had the swim canceled race morning. And then you had what seemed like hell on earth, which was Ironman Coeur d'Alene happening on Sunday, and then you and I were down at our big tri camp in Nashville. That was Wednesday through Sunday. We had 37 athletes from all over the country come in. It was a slammed and it was a busy week, but it was awesome.
Yeah, man. It was I go back to man.
I know. I know it's so weird because Mike and I we started this for doing pretty much 3 years of not looking at each other when we did the podcast, and we kind of finally got comfortable being in the same room and basically staring at each other, and I honestly prefer it. I think the flow goes better, and now that we're not there, it feels weird.
Yeah, no, I can't really set up for, I can't see an ending or anything like that. And I was talking to somebody about that this weekend. And it's something about, just being in the room where you can kind of see where people are looking at you, and I can kind of give you a little chuckle or something. But
I can always
anyway, we still got the same headsets, and that's all you need, people. It's like we just put together a quick little podcast, and it's still kind of holding on like this.
It's still barely holding on. Hopefully it's holding on the next 2 weeks when we go back to our old school.
No, but you had a good point. We're going to do some Q&A. We got a lot. We could go into probably a lot more about the camp and stuff, and I really want to maybe next time.
Yeah, well, so maybe hit on that. Maybe hit on that on Thursday. But I want to say, hey, if it's your first time tuning in, we appreciate you. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. So we appreciate you giving us your time. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, run, specific training topics. We do race recaps. We do race previews. And we've had a lot of newer listeners here lately that listened to our Ohio 70.3 preview, which we had Ken Hammond on. We'll occasionally have a guest on. Ken is one of our probably one of our favorite guests we've ever had. We've had him on twice, and maybe we'll get him on here again in the next few weeks. He's got Muscle Man and Ohio, which are his two big races. Those are coming up soon. But Mike and I, as both coaches, athletes, best friends, have been doing this for a long time. I've been coaching for 15 plus years. Mike's been doing this sport and coaching for going on 8 or 9 now. So we're not experts. We're not professionals. We're just seasoned veterans, that we can say, seasoned veterans. They've been doing this. We've made plenty of mistakes. We've had our share of success as we work with hundreds of athletes across the globe. So a lot of times we'll use them for the topics of the podcast. Mike and I will oftentimes just kind of use what's going on in our own personal life, because that's what our podcast is about. It's about triathlon. It's about life. It's about everything in between. Because what we do is it's a hobby. And I think a lot of us are probably reminded of that this last weekend with all the races that were going on and how difficult they were. That's what we do. We're not experts. We're not professionals. We just want to make you happy and healthy and deliver a message that you can absorb, take bits and pieces of it, and apply it to your own daily life to keep you, enjoying this endurance sports journey that you're on.
Yeah. It is, man, and I gotta give a quick shout out to one of my athletes, Charlie, out at Coeur d'Alene, because he was talking to me about how bad it was, and he was, going into that race hoping that he was going to get it done and finish, and he told me a little bit about how he got it was a struggle for him on the bike, and he was he really hit a wall. He had some real problems and got off. It was a long ride and hilly, and he got 4 blocks from the finish line, and he fell down, or he didn't fall, but he kind of fell to his knees and had to have an Ironman finish, or someone help him get up, and he kind of limped his way to the finish line and heard Mike Riley, announce him, and He said he was the second to last finisher.
Oh man,
I was like, man, that is amazing. Because we've
but
been
he
out
made
there
it.
at the end of to watch the last finishers come in, and it's so damn emotional. And
Mm-hmm.
what I just, shout out to him for just sticking in there and getting to that finish line. Because wow, it's like, I text him, I was like, why do you do this again?
Yeah, it's
It's
no, it is, and that's like, and I just sent out our team weekly email that sent out to our athletes, and when I saw how hot Coeur d'Alene was going to be and how where most people were coming from, and it was just obviously like unseasonably warm, and I'm always kind of one of those guys that's like, don't be a prisoner of the moment. It's not the hardest race you've ever done. It's just the one that's the most recent. But this was one of those. That was, I mean, if you look at the DNF rate was incredibly high. It was a hot. It reminded me a lot of the Louisville Heat that they had back at Louisville 1.0 before that race was moved to October, which obviously ended which is basically like put the nail in the coffin for that race. That from a performance standpoint, I had like no goals for athletes. It was just survive, don't go to the ER, and be smart. And it was just kind
hmm
of one of those days, and it just reminded me of how we sign up for these races, and we all go through like really, really, really hard things in life. But I honestly feel like one of the things that we do with signing up for these things that we know are going to be uncomfortable, right? Like I had an athlete that was there spectating, and she kind of like she get kind of used the analogy of like childbirth. She was like, it's kind of ignorant, or ignorance is bliss, and you're kind of like naive and like, oh, and then you have it and you're like, I don't want to go through this again. Like your first time, you don't know how painful it's going to be. You're just like,
hmm
I'm gung ho, I'm pumped, this race is going to be amazing, I'm going to accomplish this great thing. And then it's so incredibly uncomfortable and so painful and has so many ups and downs and so many, like, emotional. It's kind of emotional and mental roller coaster. Not to mention just like the physical demands that are put on you on race day and all the things you have to do during training. But I honestly think that in a way, it's kind of like I think people and the athletes that participate in these longer distance events, no matter what sport it is, we like to be in control of our own agony. It's like,
Yeah,
life tends to throw so many obstacles our way and life stresses, and could be work, could be relationships, could be your kids, whatever it is. Life always throws something at us every year or even multiple times a year, or in, threes even is what usually happens, it seems like, that we just kind of have to deal with. And I think a lot of people were reminded of that last year. And I think triathlon and endurance sports in a way is like, this is our choice, right? It's like, yes, we choose to go out and do these really hard things that are uncomfortable, and sometimes may even come off as dangerous, and that's agony and it's pain, it's uncomfortable, and you're like, why would you pay to do this?
yeah,
But I think in a way, it's kind of taking the control back in our lives of saying, all right, if I'm going to do something that's going to be uncomfortable, if I'm going to do something that's going to be really, really hard, I want to be in charge of it this time, because so much of life we don't have that choice, right? We just kind of have to deal with it, and I think that's part of it. And I think that's part of it for me in a way is but that's also why the finish line of these races is so amazing to be at, because you see people conquering these things, and there is an end, right? There is an end, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which life, hopefully you're not seeing the light at the end of at the end of the tunnel go out anytime soon. But it's just kind of one of those things where we get to have an end to it, and start over again. And so I think that's part of it, and I think that's again why so many people gravitate towards endurance sports.
yeah. And there's something about doing hard things that I feel like it keeps me young. It's like feel like I have to do it, and it makes things easier on the other side. And I just also believe that it's so hard to kind of keep your finger on that. You know what I mean? Like you're going through it, and you're like, man, this sucks, man. Why do I do this? But it makes so many other things easier in your life, and I think we take those for granted sometimes. So I don't know. I try this whenever I'm faced with a tough, day or something that's going on. I just like, all right, now you got to dig a little bit deeper and then pull it up, and it's usually building you up, and it's got to be good for you in the long run. I think with the exceptions. I mean, I don't think you do that kind of hard every every month or anything like that, but I think you need to do it sometimes. I think it's what keeps us going, and
I
it
think it's
keeps us.
healing, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. I think it's healing in a way to, again, because like when you look at, how unpredictable and just frankly how hard and impossible life can be sometimes with the things and the circumstances that it can throw at you, the losses, the turmoil, just with everything in life. We know it's never going to end, right? For years and hopefully for years, 10s, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years down the road, it's not going to end, right? Until, it ends finally. But with endurance sports, we get to be a part of, a lot of beginning and ends, like in the beginning of a race season, the end of a race season, the beginning of training for a race, the end of the race when you cross the finish line. And I think it does. We use this analogy a lot, that how, training for triathlon, it's you can always use like the sports analogy, for life. And endurance sports it's just kind of a microcosm of life, and it gives us a chance, I think, to show that we can do these hard things on our own and by choice. So when things, it's kind of our practice for life, if you will. Like we sign up for these things, we pay money, we invest in money, we buy bikes, we get gear, we get nutrition, people buy coaches, you get hotel rooms, you take, 10, 15, some people 20 hours a week to train for these things that we don't get paid for. We just do it to keep ourselves healthy, to challenge ourselves, to accomplish goals, to, some people do it to prove people wrong, some do it to prove themselves right, and at the end of the day, you get out what you put in, and that for a lot of that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but it gives us kind of an end, right? The end is the race itself, and you get to cross the finish line, and I think it's just a good healthy reminder of what you're capable of. And so down the road, because people often say, like, triathlon impacts their life, hopefully in a positive way, but also changes who you are, not just as a, physically with, being fitter and healthier overall, better sense of wellness. It, from a mental and emotional standpoint, it I think can propel you in a direction that allows you to conquer and withstand some of the most difficult things in life. And so honestly think the mental and emotional benefit of endurance sports actually trumps for a lot of people the increased health and physical fitness that a lot of people get from putting so many hours in for training for these races.
Hmm. I couldn't agree with that more because the mental side of it is where I always go. It's like even when I don't feel like I'm in the greatest of shape or something, I feel like I have the mentality to kind of dig up. It's even like this weekend's camp was a good example for me. It's like I'm on the edge of this training stuff. I've got Chattanooga coming up, and I've been doing all right, but like you just keep kind of getting in there, and like do as much as you can, and then you can always probably do a little bit more than you think. And I think that's such a huge point because a lot of times it's so easy to just do nothing, and it's like, I don't know, I'm gonna get back in this next week or whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
or and like for me, it comes down to meals a lot of times. Like, man, I've been eating like crap. I'm just gonna, I'll start that next week. Well, just throw it. I try to throw something good in there each day and kind of get, you know what I mean? Just because if you can get some kind of habit formed, and I think that's what triathlon does for me is it just sort of keeps me on the rails.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Oh yeah.
sometimes we get more, zoomed into that like Polar Express train or whatever the hell that is. Like it's just like dialed in and you're going right towards the race, but you can't always be there. But like you got to just sort of be around the tracks, and so you can jump on once in a while and kind of keep it reined in because it's so easy to kind of just go way off your plan. And if it's always kind of close to you, it kind of keeps you there.
And it's the power of people, right? I mean, this is
Oh,
something
for
like,
sure.
that's, I
That's
mean, let's say we're going to get into the questions, and we might just push them on Thursday. I was going back and digging through some of the comments and stuff from the campers from this last week. And honestly, one of my favorite sessions is the one that we do on Friday, the one we start out at the pool, because, coaching swimming is like is my first love. And so getting to be on deck and having, 30 plus, we had the whole pool rented out. We had every lane was full with 6 people. And being on deck, I read at least 7 or 8 comments that started off with fastest swim ever, surprised at my time, or, like, I don't best swim I've had in all year. And it had nothing to do with their fitness, right? It had to do with people being
mm,
around them, people to push you. And it wasn't like and it's that kind of like, positive peer pressure, where no one's saying, go faster, right? Like the only time I yelled the entire, hour and a half we had the athletes in the pool was at the very end when people were doing relays, and that was fun. It was like, go faster as it was a race. Other than that, it was individual workouts for each lane. There was no yelling, there was no go faster. It was the feeling of being pushed by other people around you that you saw it kind of non-verbally, right? It's like you just see people breathing hard at the end. You think, well, if they're working hard, I can work hard too. And there was this kind of just like this silent, motivated cheer in each and every lane that people just felt, and they swam harder, because they're surrounded by people. They didn't want to get caught from the person behind them, or they were trying to catch the person in front of them. Either way. But I just think it's a great message and reminder to all of us that, when you surround yourself with great people, that are doing the same kind of hard things, which to be honest with you is another reason why I think this sport can be so hard, right? In that it's hard sometimes for people, depending on where you live or depending on your schedule, how you were raised, to find people who get it, right? They're like, wait, what do you do again? And why? Like, do you win money for doing these? Like, and then you're like, oh no, I just spend, $750 just to sign up. And then I train
Yeah, I
year
know.
round, and then I spend money on bikes, and I do gear, and I get coaching, and I travel these races, and sometimes I'll stress out about it. Then I got to upload things. I got to get all these things ready. And they're like, okay, but why? Like, why do you do these things? And that's, also a huge part sometimes when people talk about like having a coach or being on a team. It's like, this creates so much value for me because no one else that I'm around gets it, or they get it and they just don't care, right? It's just not something that's in their wheelhouse. It's not something that, you know, they have an appetite for, really an understanding for. They just don't get it. And when you put yourself around people who get it and can motivate you and support you, it's different, I think, than being by a spouse or a coworker being like, hey, how'd you do today? Like, I went pretty good. They don't really care. They're just kind of asking because it's the polite thing to do. But when you surround yourself with people who are immersed in this sport, in this sport, in this culture, and really just the community that is endurance sports and triathlon, it's a different feel and it's a different vibe, because you can, again, going back to like all the things that we go through in life, it's like we're all going through our own stuff. But then when you're out there, you look at people and you see we're all kind of going through the same thing at the same time. You get it, and you get it, and you get it. And it's kind of just the power of the people that helps raise you to a different level, where if you were alone and nobody else is around, you might get off your bike and call it a day. You might stop running and you might walk. You might get out of the pool early and stop your swim. But when you see other people around you, you have the other side of that coin, which is, maybe I got one more lap in me.
Yeah,
Maybe I got one
yeah.
more mile in me. Maybe I've got one more hill repeat in me. Maybe I'll get there early, instead of showing up late. All these things, or maybe I have the confidence to do this because I see other people having the same confidence. And then again, that's why I love camp so much, because it is perfection in a bubble, right? It's the people, it's the sessions, it's the community vibe and the support that just, I'm telling you, if life could be like triathlon camp, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, the people part is like, as you think about it now, um, and what happens when you're around people, and if you're in the sport a long time, I think you can kind of suck it up and do the isolation thing. And I love training alone a lot, and but man, it keeps getting harder and harder and harder. And I think that applies to everything in life. I mean, if you're going to be on your path and don't have support around you, it's like you're saying, it's so easy to waver. And I don't care what it is you're doing. If you're real passionate about, um, painting, I'm like, how long can you just paint by yourself in the woods without anyone else seeing it or whatever? I mean, it would take a special kind of focus or mindset to just be like, this is all for me,
Hmm.
always for me. And I don't, and it's just like, how do you get to that point? A, and B, if you don't, you got to have those support systems around, or otherwise you're gonna just like you're saying, you're gonna be, I won't do it today, or whatever the case may be. And it is amazing how just having someone around can kind of take you an extra mile, you know? And I always talk about race energy. And for me, that's a big, underrated thing, you know? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I always say it's like 25% of my my day energy. You know, it's like
Well,
I
and
train
it's
to
and it's
know
what you bank on, right? Like you
I
you bank on you know what you get from the race day energy, and so you do like the reverse math calculation, which is like, all right, I got 85 to 90-mile ride. That's probably enough because you know what? I got the crowd, baby, and that'll get me at least 20, 25 more miles of energy left. So I got this.
you're right. And so as I think about that, I'm like, all right, well, you know, why don't I train to 105 this time or whatever, you know, and get a little bit more solo energy, you know, taken care of, and then and maybe that'll take me over a little bit different a hump. But it is real, you know, you can't deny that. I think people on the course, whether they're supporters or people in the race with you that you see running, and it's like when I'm on a greenway, if I see a group of people, I just sort of, it just naturally picks up, and that's probably some kind of insecurity in me. But whatever it is, you know, I believe it does work. And when you have 40 people at our camp like this that are all just sort of showing up and going, "Hey, I'm ready. I'm going to do whatever it takes." And it helps get you in the pool, or it helps get you on your bike that morning or whatever, and then accomplish something that you didn't really know you could do. And I think that's a huge part of our camp is the confidence level that it boosts in people. When they leave, they're like, "Man, I didn't think I could do that." And all of a sudden, bam, it takes you up a notch, you know. And it's like I always say about swimming, once you cross that 3,000 mark, you know, then getting to the pool seems a lot easier. And, you know, 2,000 or what, 1,500 seems like a joke. But it's that kind of stair stepping that people can help get you through and make and take you to a different level. And I think that's sometimes what we need. You know, we can paint in the woods all we want, but you need someone out there to kind of maybe say like, "Hey, if you did this and let's go do this." And then it kind of breaks you out of your, you know, your little box. And that's to me is like a huge part of training. It's like breakthroughs, you know what I mean?
It reminds us what we're capable of, right? And because we forget that, like, and I think that goes with like loss of motivation, loss of energy, bad time management, life stress, right? Because life stress is always what, really like submerges your level of like motivation and energy. It's not like I'm frustrated and have my energy and my motivation today. Well, you got 3 hours of sleep and you have your boss is like on you about getting this presentation done in like 5 hours. Like it's not that you don't have motivation as a person to train and complete your goals. It's that you're so stressed you don't have room for it, right? And so sometimes we take the shortcut, right? Or it's I think it's human nature to we find the path of easiest resistance. And when you come to a camp like this and or you train somewhere new, because this is what so many athletes say, it's like, I would have I in the past I would have avoided this kind of route, or I would have not attempted to do this, but since I was around people, I did, again, like positive peer pressure. Or I didn't think I could do hills, but here I am. And it was this camp was special for a lot of reasons, and one of them, we had people that were there for their fourth year in a row. And
Hmm.
as a coach, and as a one of the people who puts on the camp, it's like I was heading up, one's particular. I just saw so much growth in so many athletes from remembering where they were in year one, and one particular was Dennis Myers. He lives in Virginia Beach or the Virginia area, and it's there. It's like if you want to go find hills, you go to a parking garage, or you go to quote unquote the bridge, where you get like 200 feet of elevation if you cross it like 500 times. And he was at our very first camp, and we're cruising up. We were at the Natchez Trace, and some of us went down to the gate and tackled like this huge monster hill on the way back up. He did it twice, and he and I were riding up it, and he looked over at me, and he goes, "You remember the first year I was here, which is 4 years ago?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "I had to walk parts of this up the hill."
Mm.
And here he was 4 years later, and he didn't walk it last year, the year before, and here he was doing it twice. It's just the growth, right? And I didn't see when he said that to me, I didn't see, oh, dude, yes, you are. you're crushing it physically. Look at you performing. What I saw on his face was a smile. And it was this sense of accomplishment, and not that I'm, this, much more, I'm a high performance machine now, and like what I was before was nothing. It was a sense of confidence and joy, and what he was able, how he's transformed, right? And yes, it came in a physical example by what he was able to do, but the smile I saw on his face and the look in his eyes and just kind of the way he was carrying himself on the bike was like, you could tell that it was propelling him forward in a positive way in many other areas than just making it up this hill. And and again, it's just a great analogy of the things we can accomplish, because again, like, life is already hard enough, right? And so when you people are like, wait, why are you putting yourself in these hard situations and asking so much of yourself? And what do you do with your free time? You don't want to just sit around and watch Netflix. But when you think about what it can do for your life and the confidence it can give you, I mean, we've had people comment before that, through, coaching and just through triathlon, it's like, I never would have gotten this promotion at work. I never would have talked to my boss about this. I never would have, gone after this in life. But doing this sport has given me the confidence to attack and accomplish, and the drive and the determination to do whatever it is that I want. And those are the things that you can't put a price on those, right? You can't put and I do think, like, camps and racing and training, and if you're on a team, whatever it is, like, the ripple effect that is triathlon and endurance sports, if you're surrounded by the right people and you have, the right coaches around you, and you just have a solid support system, and you get after and you accomplish things, like, the ripple effect to me is infinite. It can impact you in ways and in areas that you honestly never dreamed of when you hit that register button, for the first time, and you got panicky, right? You got anxiety. You're like, crap, this is now real. Now I paid for it. Now I really got to do it, because signing up is the easiest part and the rest is the hardest. And
Hmm.
it's those things that we do that it literally does. And I think people who haven't experienced it before, because I know I've experienced it a lot of times, how triathlon has changed me and just the fabric of who I am and what I see and what I feel like I can do in life. It can transform you, right? And being that was like one of the phrases that Steve Moss, who came to our camp this year from Vermont, he had signed up for it, um, what, 2 years ago, and then a year, because it sells out super quick, and then last year couldn't come because the pandemic, and he lives in Vermont, which is basically, one big isolated state, because there's not many people that live there. But he needed the connection. He didn't get it last year. He was bummed, and he came. And I know you and him spent a lot of time together as well over camp. And we were leaving, and he was kind of teary eyed. And I was like, so how was it? Because when you have people that build up these camps for, like, so high, you're like, did it, like, even come close to, like, kind of reaching what you thought it might? And he was like, it was transformative. And I don't think that's an understatement. But it's not the coaching, it's not getting on your bike, it's people, and it's what we can. I think we just can accomplish so much in life if we just surround ourselves with good people who are supportive of our dreams, and what we want to accomplish. And they don't have to say anything. They don't have to be the rah rah kind of people. They can just be there and kind of have that silent support, which again, to me, is worth its weight in gold.
Hmm. I'm glad you brought that up about Dennis too, because I think a lot in the ripple effect that you just mentioned. That's such a huge part because he remembered exactly that particular hill and how he
Right.
had trouble with it. And 4 years later, he was kind of laughing at it, right? And it's just a good reminder because we go through this, and much like a race, it's just sort of slow, one foot in front of the other kind of progress. It's not like you get that day. Well, occasionally there's no really breakthrough days, but most of the time it's just kind of this train chugging along and going in the right direction or whatever. And next thing you know, like you'd walk into your boss's office, go, "Hey, I need a raise," and then you walk out and go, "Where the hell did that come from?" It's just sort
Right.
of like it sort of happens, but I think it's important to pay attention to those moments because it's so easy to get trapped in the inertia of the improvements and things in the sport. And I had a guy race steelhead, and he was happy with his race. He had a good race, and I was looking at his training. I'm like, I think you got a way better race in you. And I think a lot of times it just becomes time and experience and going through different things and
Mhm.
learning. And as you're saying that, I was thinking back, due to the first time you took me to the trace, right? And how just absolutely like shelled I was, and how intimidated I was by everything. And now, it's 8 years later. Of course, we've ridden it many, many times since then.
Yep.
But if I can somehow look at the differences and really discern, like, man, this is like night and day, but they're not right next to each other, so you
Right.
can't see it as clearly. But for me, that's all a lot about why I like to write about it, or why we do podcasts and talk about these things, even though they're just sometimes you and I are just kind of hashing out concepts between us on the fly. But I think it's important to look at those sort of things. I was riding, I guess it was Saturday, and the plan was we were going to ride out to the parking lot and turn around, but past that parking lot is that huge first hill, right? That that comes into Natchez Trace, and we were just going
Mhm.
to ride to the parking lot and skip that. And I decided when we got there, and Emily was following me, and
You
I
pulled a
said,
me, huh?
I'm just, we're going down, and she was, kind of, I could tell she was a little bit pissed at me for doing it and whatever, but when we got done, and she was like all excited about, man, that wasn't that bad. And she's doing Wisconsin, so it's just another, step on the road. And I think that we do so many things that throughout training, where so many hours are put into it, and we can just get like, and unless we step back and look at it from these perspectives, we can just get caught in that soup and not realize that, man, we're making a lot of progress over time. It's sort of like, you've used the analogy before, when you put money in, an investment, you just leave it. And if you look, 10 years later, and hopefully it's like way up, but along
Yeah.
the way, it was just sort of like creeping. You didn't even really notice it was doing anything. And next thing you're doing Ironman or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
or it could have gone through a massive drop, right? Where
Right.
you were
Yeah.
losing money and like not a realized loss because you got it in there, and then you just wait and you don't let it sit, you don't touch it, right? You're not impulsive when it's really high, you don't move it. When it's really low, you just kind of let it be, and things kind of self-correct, and that's again like why I love. I always say like variety is for the week, and it pretty much is. But like when you go back and you do repeatable things, right? Like in the Dennis examples again is great because it's a place on the map where he remembers something that he didn't feel right about. They had to get off his bike and walk, and then now he gets to come back, and now it's a sign, instead of it being a sign of weakness or a shortcoming or something that he wish he could have accomplished. Now he comes back, instead of it kind of sucking the life out of him. Now it gives him life, right? He sees it and he thinks, I didn't always used to go do this, now I can do this. And I
Hmm.
think there is no better feeling than having that, right? And seeing something that you weren't able to do before, but now you are, right? Or you have this favorite route that you do from your house, whether it's riding or running, and you just kind of like nonchalantly go out for a Tuesday or Wednesday run or ride, and then all of a sudden you come back and it was a 40-minute run. You're like, this is my usual 40-minute loop. And you come back in 36 and you're like, oh shit, I need to find a new loop. And it's a great feeling because you're like, it's working. Like all this stuff, it's supposed to surprise you, right? And it's not supposed to be forced. It's supposed to come incrementally and in small doses over time. And it's not something that you force. It just happens from all the hard work that you put in. And to have those moments and to go back and think, and it, like you said, or Emily said, it wasn't that bad. It never is. It never is that bad. But our mind takes us into a place where most for most people, right? It's maybe except for the ones that are have the giant egos and are always overconfident. For most of us, the loudest voice in our head is the one that holds us back. And the one
Hmm.
that that says you can't, or maybe you shouldn't, or oftentimes it's the voice that says, you know what, just don't do it today. We can do this another day. You just don't have it today. You got a lot going on. Do you? Right? Or can't you? Like, why can't you do it today? Why aren't you capable of this? We never It's just kind of interesting. I think like the dialogue that we go through in our head, like the dialogue that is the overconfident, the maybe because everybody has an ego, the ego, the positive self-talk, those that's the one that we often question, right? They're like, oh, you can do it, and you're like, really, can I? Are you sure? Like, I don't know, maybe. We always question that one, but it's the one that, but when you go to like the negative self-talk or the doubts or the ones that you can't, it's like, I don't know, Mike, you can't do this. You're like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, we don't put up much of a fight to the ones that, for those kind of negative thoughts that creep in, we just kind of let it go and we accept it for whatever reason, right? Because of either just how we were raised or how we were wired or how we're kind of feeling at the moment. But I think always questioning is a good thing. Really, why can't I? Right? And or because we there's so much going on in the sport and there's so much going on in life. Like, we rarely stop anymore to ask why. Right? We just kind of believe everything we see or believe whatever we want to about ourselves for whatever reason, because it takes more work to ask why or to dig deeper or to challenge it. Whether it's someone's argument on social media, it's like, okay, first of all, that's bullshit. You should research more. Be like, yeah, whatever, I'll just kind of let it slide, because it takes effort, right? It takes effort to argue. It takes effort to get into heated conversations. It takes time and effort, energy to get into longer conversations. But that's where people grow. That's where people figure things out. And the same thing goes for ourselves, right? When we seem like, yeah, I don't really think I have the time. And you're like, really? Why don't you? Or are you not just making the time? I think that's like I had this conversation with myself. Like, we got done, how I am at camp. I'm like, if you're 10 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
And before I go any further, I would be remiss by not mentioning that this was the most punctual on-time camp we have ever done in my entire life. And you, my friend, were a standout.
Thank you.
You were a pillar of timeliness. And if you've ever been to a camp and you've been to this one, you would agree. It was remarkable. People change, people change. Even in their
They're like
50s.
right there. There's my thing. In the last
There it
year,
is.
I went up
Exactly.
early.
There's your
Maybe
thing.
I can do it.
It
Maybe.
is. And
I,
so I'm all about people being on time, and then I'm all about people being back on time, because it's about safety and about making sure everybody's accounted for. And so we were getting done with our last Saturday, our last ride of the trace, and I came back and it was like 10, 13, or 14. And I was like, all right, I want to go back out. I want to see if I can hit those two hills again. And I want to sweep and make sure no one else is behind me. And I got to like the halfway point and I thought, all right, I can probably turn around because I know I'll make it back on time. But do I really do I really want to see if I can make it all the way back and out and back? Because I don't want to be late, because I don't want to hear it, because everybody would give me the business if the coach was late. And I was like, but I think I got it in me to do it if I just power it out and lay it down. But then of course my first thought was, yeah, but you don't have to do that. Just turn around and be early. Like you got stuff to do. And I was like, you know what? I know I have stuff to do, but if I'm late, I'm late. And I went ahead and powered. I ended up coming back like
yeah, that's my
a,
man.
a minute, yeah, a minute early. So you're rubbing off on me. I was like, I'm late, whatever.
I
Um,
am rubbing off on you. I think a little bit.
and came back. I was a minute early, but it was the thought. You know what? Why not? Why can't I? Why can't I see? And I think it's those short conversations of like, let's just see if I can do it. What's the harm, right? What bad, horrendous, awful thing is going to happen if I just go and see, if I just try, if I just take a step to figure this out, like, what's the worst that can happen? And but for a lot of people, it's, you might just figure out you got more in the tank, or you got more inside of you, or you have more ability than you once thought. And I do think, honestly, that's also scary for people, is because when you have to shift what you believe and what you see about yourself, and you have to admit that you can no longer expect the minimalist approach for yourself, or the minimum level of achievement, then now all the doors are open. And now you have to start looking at things a different way. And I think that's also why a lot of people choose, frankly, to underachieve, because it's safe. And there is no pressure. There is no um, benchmarks you can't hit if you're just committed to underachieving because it feels safe to you. That's not the way to live. That's not the way to train. That's not the way to work. That's not the way to do anything. You have to push yourself. You have to put yourself in those situations where, let's just find out, because that's again, that's the most I think that's one of the biggest benefits of endurance sports is that path and that journey of self exploration. That yes, it's catapulted by the physical, but it's the exploration and the journey of the mental and emotional aspects of your life that I think really just kind of flow.
Yeah, it's you got to get. That's a really good point because there's times when, and yeah, I'm sure you go through it too, because you know what you can do, and everybody kind of knows, I think, deep down what we can do, and especially if you've been there, you know. And I know I face that right now because I know I've got a lot more in me, but it's sort of like I also know what that's going to take, but it's kind of just, climbing over that wall. And I love what you said, and you reiterated the point of it. It wasn't that bad, and I think that's the thing. We we look at a mountain and we're going like, man, and it's just that one step in front of the other kind of thing. And if you just
Hmm.
keep in that box and keep in that zone and keep moving the right way, then instead of trying to, I always talk about, you don't finish the race as soon as you start to swim. And to me, that's a mentality that you just have to surrender to the moment and just keep trucking along, and it'll be here when it gets here. You can't make 12 hours come in the first 5 minutes. It just takes time. And to do that, you have to just keep in the right mindset and just keep doing what you've been doing all along in training and not try to get too fancy. And really, ultimately, it just takes patience
Hmm.
and just because you can do it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are afraid to go out there because then all of a sudden it's like, you kind of taking off the training wheels, and then you got to kind of, it's sort of like that, oh, this is comfortable right here. I can do this all day. But then once you take the training wheels off, you got to do a little more work. And that isn't always comfortable, but it always pays off.
It takes more work to underachieve than it does to overachieve. And to meet what you're capable of, because you have to constantly and consistently worry and focus on not doing instead of just doing. And that's one of the bigger themes I got when I started in AA, and my therapist and also my sponsor was like, if it scares you, just do it. Don't question
Mm,
it. Don't overthink. Because listen, the you can overthink anything into giving you a reason to not do it or why it's bad, right? Like you can, like the especially this day and age, it's like everyone can argue to you blue in the face, like, oh, that can be bad. Let me explain to you how. And then like 9 hours later, they're like, and that is how water is evil. And you're like, wait, what does it do in my life? Why do I waste? And you can do that. It takes a lot of effort, right? To kind of think to convince, instead of just, you know what, just do it, just jump, right? Just do it. We think so much that we oftentimes, again, if you think about it, like no one ever thinks their way into being confident. They do things to become confident. But people think their way into being insecure or bad self-talk. Like, quick example, at the swim on Friday, Audrey Shannon is one of our athletes. She's younger, in her 20s. She's doing Ironman Chattanooga. Has only raced like twice. Very, very, very new to the sport. Has never even worn a wetsuit. Is kind of uncomfortable about just jumping in the water. She's like, I've never just jumped in the water before, ever. And I know that in Chattanooga I have to jump in the water. And here, like me, I'm a water guy. Like, I'm basically more comfortable in the water. I'm like, dude, you just jump in. Like, it's not something, but triathletes in general like to overthink everything. Like, well, but I have to get it exactly right. And I was like, Audrey, you just jump in the water. She was like, but I think I need to practice this. I'm thinking, all right, well, I was like, well, let's just practice. Here's what you're gonna do. We walk close to the edge, and I just shoved her in. That's it. She popped up, and I was like, there you go. Now you know how. And I was like, some things you just don't need to overthink. You just need to do them, because the more you think about anything, the more you analyze, you're gonna find things that are wrong or reasons that you shouldn't, right? Like, we talk about this all the time too. Like, when it comes to the hub we have in Chattanooga, it's like I tried to think my way. I tried to think my way out of that a million times. Like, this isn't gonna work, or this might not be good, or this could happen. Especially, like during 2020, when like everything was closing, not opening. Um, but in my gut, I was like, but just do it. And what's the worst that can happen, right? What's
hmm
the worst? that can happen. And if you really ask that question, good luck finding a really good answer that's like, okay, well, that actually could be the worst thing. But what's the likelihood of the worst things happening? Like, just do it and figure it out. But we live in an age now where everyone feels like they have to have the answer to everything before it's done. Where's the fun in that?
Mm.
Like, and having the absolutes. Like, some people do that. Some people live in the absolutes where they have to have the answer before they do it. Like, I just want to like give me a glimmer of hope or a glimmer of possibility, and let's figure it out. Let's see what can happen, right? Let's see what we're capable of. Let's see how things can work. Because if you believe it, then go, then do it. Like, we had an athlete that was at our tech camp. Her thing is going through like some professional turmoil and changes, and she was like, what made you decide to do this, to take this leap, and you and Mike opening up the hub and moving Chattanooga and doing this, and I just said, we just wanted to. It wasn't like, we
Yeah.
didn't like do like some like 5-year business plan. It was just like, we just wanted to. We just generally wanted to help people and see people more, and do something that we loved. And a lot of times the answer is that simple, right? Do I want to do this event? Yes. It's gonna be hard. Yep, but I want to do it, so let's do it, right? And not overthink our way into not doing so many things, because you're gonna miss out on so much, not just in training and in racing, but in life.
Mm. That's great, man. I agree. We just did it, and it's there waiting for everyone now to check out, right? I mean,
Sitting, waiting,
we
sitting.
something we wanted to do, and now every triathlete listening to this podcast can come check it out and take advantage of it as the hub for the Southeast.
The hub for the Southeast for now. Well, those were your questions today. We appreciate you
Thank you
tuning
for
in again. As if you noticed, or I mean, most of you probably listen already. Like, we generally have an idea, but we'll get to your questions. They're always a good fallback. Something that and honestly, we got 510 more podcasts to do before we both retire at podcast 1000. So, we have time. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We hope, and also we appreciate your patience in the next week or so, as we're going to both be pretty much casting remotely. We know you've probably gotten used to the crystal clear, um, voice vibrations that are Mike and I from our cozy little office at the hub in Chattanooga, but we'll be going old school. That's always good to go back to your roots, remind you how you got here. And we hope you all had a great weekend. If you want to check out all the things that we do, head over to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Also, our condo and hub visit package that ends July 15th, I think. You can book
Yep.
you can book the condo hub package, which is 475 total. Gets you one night in the condo. It also gets you the hub experience, which includes a swim analysis, bike fit, bike testing, run analysis, run testing, coffee with Mike, and just a general and solid half day with us in the hub. And that's 475. You can book between now and July 15th. If you book it, you get that package, but you can book for whenever, all the way through the end of 2022. So if you want to take advantage of that, do it now. You got about 2 more weeks to do that. If you want to just get in for a hub experience or swim analysis, or just want to take a visit the condo, for both those things, you can email Summer. She's at c26operations@gmail.com. We'll have more info on our camps coming out. We have our C26 triathlon camp that's be back in Nashville next year. We give our athletes about a week to sign up for that before we open to the general public. But that'll be out. And then we also have a camp coming to Texas, the great state of Texas, where we have a lot of listeners and a lot of athletes. That'll be next March. We have more details about that coming out later this week as well. And if you want info on those, you can email Summer again as well, c26operations@gmail.com. But yeah, the rest on our website, coaching, club membership still going on. Click on our coaches tab. I know most coaches have a couple slots open right now, so hit them up before the season gets away from you, because we are halfway through.
Yep.
If you have questions for Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. Got any questions for me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. Well, I had a good time. Enjoyed it being
Man,
back in the
it's good.
saddle.
Back in the saddle, man. Have a good day, dude.
All right, you too. I'll catch up with you Thursday, man.
All right, man. See you.
See you.